Rick Horrow, Facebook Live, Lambeau Field, Green Bay, Wisconsin. This is one of the, if not the most iconic franchises for those of you international audience in the world, let alone iconic franchises in the National Football League. Forbes came out with their valuation of franchises around the world, and the Packers came in at 25th. Not just in the NFL, clearly they're higher, they're 10th in the NFL according to that same measuring stick, but 25th out of 50 global franchises. So when you think about it, Green Bay, Wisconsin is in the same area awareness, economic par with Rome, with Paris, with franchises in Madrid, and it's incredible. And the current steward, and I mean that exactly as I said it once you find out the organizational structure, CEO Mark Murphy. Mark, thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you.
Really appreciate
Welcome to Green Bay.
Well, it's really.
This is a nice time of year to be in Green Bay.
Well, it's by the way, it's one of the few summer days we have in Green Bay here, and it'll be great. So if
no frozen tundra.
By the way, Mark has invited me to play golf with him on January 15th here. I don't understand why he said that. I think it'll be fairly evident in the next few weeks. But so, describe for an international audience the difference between your position as CEO and who you report to versus the other other 31 teams in the NFL.
Yeah, every other team in the NFL, every other team in all professional sports in the United States, are owned by a single owner or a group of owners. But the Packers are owned by the community. The roots go back to the 1920s when wanted to make sure that the team stayed in Green Bay, so they had a series of stock sales, and had our fifth one in 2011. So we have 370,000 shareholders. By the way, I understand you're one.
We'll be talking about that in a minute.
So let me know. You're my boss.
Yeah.
So if there's anything you'd like to do, let me know.
Maybe we'll see.
So I'm president, but so we don't have an owner, but we can't send 370,000 shareholders to the owners meetings. So I represent the Packers at the owners meetings, and my wife calls me a faux owner. So I'm an owner without the money. Is that what she says?
Yeah, but it's interesting. But you have the same administrative responsibilities as a president or chief executive officer of any of the other 31 teams in the NFL.
Yeah, the other presidents report to a single owner, and I report to shareholders, and of which there's a board of 45 active members, and then a number of committees, but most importantly, including an executive committee of 7, including myself. And that, I'd say the executive committee, along with our senior administration, really make the major decisions for the Packers.
And the other interesting dynamic of this is that the NFL is effectively a private corporation for those of you internationally, and it has 32 equal members, and one of those has public reporting requirements. Mm-hmm. So when the press basically wants to find out about numbers, revenue, and expenses from NFL teams, they can get the Packers numbers and use it as a measuring stick around the rest of the NFL.
Yeah, no, and it always comes out. We release our financial statements usually early July, and the national media, especially when we're like in the middle of collective bargaining or there's some issues at a league level, a lot of interest in it. But I think it shows the uniqueness of our organization. The other thing I'd say, Rick, in addition to our ownership structure, the other thing that's so unique about it is that we're such a small community. It's by far the smallest market in the NFL, not even close. Buffalo is the second smallest, and they're quite a bit bigger. But then also, I would say our history and tradition. We've won more championships than any other team in the NFL, 13, and so it's a number of different things. And then quite honestly, you mentioned at the intro, Lambeau Field. Lambeau Field is iconic, and it's becoming more and more of an attraction. I don't know if it's because we play so many national games, and the national media is great. Bob Costas standing up and saying, if you're ever going to go to an NFL game, you got to go to Lambeau Field. It's such a great experience. But we set a record last year. Actually, previous record was the year following our Super Bowl victory. we had 135,000 people take tours. But this past year, we had 175,000 people take tours of Lambeau Field.
Oh, you won a Super Bowl? Oh, you won 4 Super Bowls and 13 NFL championships, I think is the right answer. So when Mark talks about legacy, he really means it. And he may call himself a faux owner. I'm a faux journalist. I forgot to tell you that if you hang on to this entire broadcast, which you should, we're really talking about the economics not only of a publicly owned, community-owned company, but also how it impacts by far the smallest town in the National Football League and its region, 104,057 according to the last census. And Mayor Schmidt, who will be on after Mark, knows every one of those people personally, which is one of the reasons why he's been elected for 45 or 46 straight terms. We'll get into that in a few minutes. But it is an amazing, incredible combination. So when you're at NFL owners' meetings and you vote as the governor like the other 31, do they look at you differently? Do they look at you and say, here's the guy without money?
Yeah, it's funny. Before I went to my first owners meeting, I've been in my position about almost 9 years. I wondered, what are those meetings like? Because especially having played in the league and then being involved in the Players Association, I always kind of wondered what it was like. But it's really not. It's not that much different than any other meetings or business meetings. But in terms of how the Packers are viewed, I think there's an awareness that we're kind of different and. I especially noticed it during when we had the stock sale in 2011. We had to get approval from the owners, and so we kind of went through the stock sale and what we anticipated, what we'd use the money that we raised for. And during the middle of it, Jerry Jones stood up and said, "Mark, can you explain to us how that works?"
No.
It's like that's a pretty good idea. I'd like to do it. I said, "Well, no, this is the only because we're the only ones that could have a stock sale like this." But it works well for us. The other thing I would say, I think because of the success that the Packers have had, primarily on the field, but also off the field, we're by far the smallest market, but the last 3 years in a row now, we've been number 9 in the league in terms of total revenue. Okay. So even though we're a small market, we've been able to generate revenue at a fairly high level. That I think there's a level of respect for the Packers within the room.
Talk about that for a second, then we'll get back to the stock specifics. Television contract, about $5 billion, 4.4 to $5 billion annually. Mm-hmm. It's a lot bigger than the MLBs or the NBAs, but even more important, that is shared equally among the 32 teams.
Yep.
And so that number, and if I'm right, it's the visiting team share 40%, the home team at 60%. Effectively, ticket sales and television are shared almost equally, if not equally, relative to the splits.
Yep.
And so if that didn't happen, there'd be no Green Bay Packers. There'd be Packers.
Going back, there's no question the league's revenue sharing model has been very, very positive for the Packers, and to me, it's the biggest advantage that the NFL has as a league. We've got a revenue sharing model that works. We've got a salary cap. We've got a relationship with our Players Association that works very well. So we're very fortunate. The league the popularity of the game is pretty remarkable, especially in terms of television. I forget exactly, but 2 or 3 years ago, I think of the 35 highest-rated television programs, 34 were NFL
what was the other
games.
One?
I think it was the Academy Awards.
Yeah.
But
that was
so
terrible. That was boring. That year the Academy Awards was boring, but it's an interesting perspective, and it's stabilized. And when you talk about sports, it's talk a little bit about Twitter and social media and all the things that the NFL is trying to do to increase revenue, knowing that this is basically reality television, and it's the only real reality television left.
Yeah, the league has taken a lot of steps in recent years to reach out, to have more ways for fans to engage with them. Going back, it was started a number of years ago, but it's really starting to bear fruit, particularly now as the NFL Network. 24 hours a day, year round. We just did an experiment with Twitter, and and you're going to have to bear with me here. I'm not up on all the terms, but it was an over-the-top broadcast. So
that's a good start. Keep going.
And but what was good about it, so it was we wanted to see what it was like And what that really does, and this is kind of ties into another big initiative for the league, is the international. Yeah. So, when you're on broadcast networks or cable, the time you really it's really just in the United States. But when and it was a London game last year, was broadcast live on the internet and over-the-top broadcast. And it really opened up the world, and so
not
the games.
World's best game.
Jaguars and Buffalo. Yeah, yeah. Hey, I'm a Bills fan now. I grew up in Buffalo. Come on.
I know, but it was still. Yeah. And the Jaguars played pretty well in the second half. Yeah. But still.
But I think they had 17 million people. Yeah. So it was, and because of the game, I think it was an afternoon game in London, prime time in Asia. You had. It really opened up the NFL to a very broad market. So I think you're going to see a lot of changes in the coming years in terms of media, and also a much bigger push to have more games international.
And you're going to start learning a few other words like TriCast and appealing to the cord cutters, right?
Yeah.
Because the bottom line of what
and
happens
it's all driven by the millennials.
Yeah, there you go. It's got that whole combination.
Well, the league was really smart with the Thursday. Yeah. So we did long-term deals with Fox, CBS, NBC. And for the traditional Sunday broadcast, Sunday night, Monday night, and then we kept the Thursday kind of to experiment, and I think it's really been beneficial.
And NFL Network and then CBS, NBC split.
Yeah, and this year it's going to be split, like you said, a TriCast. It's going to be CBS, NBC, NFL Network, and Twitter. Yeah. So you're gonna. I can't even tell you what it's gonna. Yeah. There's 18 games and they're splitting it up, but it's really pretty progressive thinking on the league's part to get as much exposure as possible.
Hard-hitting former NFL defensive back, now turning television maven, ladies and gentlemen, who really can do that perspective. Internationally, Roger Goodell challenged his staff to generate $25 billion in annual revenue by the end of the labor agreement. He may or may not make it, but no matter if he gets close, that's pretty good. Internationally,
well, to put it in perspective, we're at 12 now.
Yeah, I
and
understand.
we've got 5 years to go on this.
5 years, way to go, but everybody wakes up. Let's see what we can do.
Yeah.
So internationally, team in Mexico, team in London, where's that all shake out?
Excuse me, that's a good question. We've had great success in London.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the Packers have not played there yet.
Yeah.
So I would be hung in effigy, or I would actually, not even effigy, I'd be hung if we took a home game out of Green Bay. I mean, it means so much. Home games mean so much to the market here that we would never give up a home game. But then the other thing is our fans travel so well to away games that teams that are going to be playing a game against the Packers in their stadiums don't want to give up a game against the Packers. Yeah. So we haven't been able to, and there's been a couple other franchises that I know the league wants to get.
It's hard being an international icon.
Yeah,
you want to hear, basically.
So the games, every game in London is sold out. I mean, it's highly successful. I just think in terms of having a franchise there, I think there are some pretty major logistical issues that need to be worked out.
But time to do it.
Oh yeah, ultimately. Yeah. I mean, I think how does it work? What's it look like? We're going to have a game in Mexico City this year, regular season game, and then 2018 there'll be a regular season game in China. So we're moving in that direction.
And the teams who don't have the iconic and cultural commitment to all of those home games, they're the ones that volunteer. So I know the Rams are opening up in China. I don't know if it's officially announced, but that's the...
Well, what the league can do under the league policy is a couple different situations. If you're playing in a temporary stadium like the Rams are, the league can require you to play an international game. I think if you've hosted a Super Bowl, the same thing. It's because they want to have a number of international games, and I'm not sure there's finding enough teams willing to give up the home games is a challenge.
So the other piece of this too is Real Madrid just cut that $1.6 billion 10-year kit deal with Adidas, and are you jealous that why not us? When are we going to start? We have opportunities to do logos on practice jerseys. When are we going to do it for real? Is that a revenue source in the foreseeable future or not?
Yeah, I mean, that's something I think, particularly at the league level, we're tracking. I think the NBA is starting to move in that direction. I think there's always and it's a healthy tension between generating revenue and the football side, doing what's right for the game of football. I do quite honestly worry a little bit about overexposure. But, the ratings continue to be very strong. But, it's just we have a lot of games and there are a lot on, on prime time, but as long as the public continues to watch, I think we'll be continuing to offer them.
And they do. Let's shift back just for a few minutes to me being your boss. So I got this in the mail.
And by the way, I think you missed a deadline.
Well, but all right. But you know what? It's going to be irrelevant because I've opened it before, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. But I think I'm still going to be okay. So here's the deal.
That's your biggest right. Your biggest right is to vote at the annual meeting.
I know who I'm voting for. So here's the deal. There's no equity, ladies and gentlemen. You can't resell. There are basically no extended voting rights. You can vote at the annual meeting, but only for the slate that's provided for you. There's no securities law protection. And more important than anything else, there is a waiting list of 86,000 people and no season ticket privileges. So I want you to know.
I hate to tell you, the waiting list has gone up to 128,000.
Because I'm getting a lawyer anyway. I am getting a lawyer before I open this up. Seriously, it is a testament to an interesting gift, but it's also a testament to symbolizing how important the Packers are to the community.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've seen so many pictures people send me. It's a source of pride. They hang the certificates up usually in their man caves or in their basement. I should say fan cave.
Fan cave. Man or woman cave. Nobody can hold more than 200,000 shares?
Yeah, that's right.
Is that correct? So you don't have a monopoly there. As of last, you still have some outstanding shares, or have they all been sold?
Everything's been sold, and as I said before, any stock sale in the future has to be approved by the league. I mean, that's the concern with the league is, well, other teams can't do it. No. If we had stock sales every year, we could use that to give ourselves a competitive advantage. So, and the last one, we used that for our south end zone expansion. So all the money that was raised went right into the stadium.
Well, speaking of expansion, but first, before the whole stadium issue, which is really important to kind of end on thematically. 1919 is your 100th year history anniversary. What are you doing special?
We've got a special committee. We've got a number of different. If I told you, I would be in. Yeah, I wouldn't.
But it's got to be big.
Yeah, I'd be in trouble.
It's got to be big.
It's going to be huge.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So we got that, and then there have been, as far as I could tell, 8 or 9 expansions of Lambeau since you originally started it, and you played at Bellevue Park and Hagemeister Park, and those are not relevant because that was back in 1921. At least I've done my history. Yeah. But you've had effectively large expansions, including the one I was lucky enough to work on in the early 2000s, where you really spent $150 million or so of Brown County tax money. We'll talk to the mayor about that as well. Yeah. But this is not a stadium. It's a museum. In a way, it's really a public-private partnership.
Well, you're right. Well, the 2003 renovation really changed Lambeau Field from a facility that was just used on 10 days a year for the home games, the regular season and preseason, to now it's used year round with the atrium here and the meeting space we have. We had over 700 events last year.
And Titletown, you're building that's just west of Lambeau.
And really to build on the success of the atrium and Lambeau Field. And with our Hall of Fame now, I mentioned the tours. We've got a great restaurant, 1919 Kitchen and Tap, and our pro shop, and it's really not anything like it that I know of in professional sports.
Well, that's the point. And the other issue, too, which is interesting, is whether they do it or not, most teams use the end of a lease term as leverage to threaten to go elsewhere. The 1923 Articles of Incorporation originally said that if there were any post-expense proceeds on sale, and there's a lot given the average franchise net worth today is $2 billion, they would go to the Sullivan Wallen Post of the American Legion, and it was changed to the Packers Foundation. So you really can't get out of town even if you wanted to.
No, well, we have 2 main goals. The first one's to win championships, Super Bowls, and the other one is to make sure the team stays in Green Bay. And so that's very unique, as you said. It's very different with other teams.
How close were you when the team played the 6 games in Milwaukee every year? And then there was the deal to renovate here, and the deal was you play all the games here. And that was it.
No, I think that was a tough decision. And the decision was made in the early '90s to play all the games here, And just from talking to people, I think it was hard on the players, on coaches. It was it was 3 games a year in Milwaukee, but it was like having additional road games. Plus, with the big investment that we've made now in Lambeau Field, I think it just made sense to have everything here.
So he's a hero in Green Bay. He's predicted off camera a Super Bowl championship by 1919 for the 100th. No, he didn't. But he is an icon.
That would be very nice, though, if we. But I would want one before then. With
before then, too, clearly, and you have the team that has the capability of doing it too. Obviously, what's next for Mark Murphy? How long are you doing this?
I just turned 61, but really enjoy doing it, and it's such a unique organization, and as long as I'm healthy and continue to feel that I'm contributing to improving the organization, I'd be happy to keep doing it.
Well, I'm really excited that I've nuzzled up to Mark Murphy today in this interview, and so. Can I get some more equity in this?
Why don't you give me this and I'll vote for it?
I get equity.
The shareholder meeting was in July.
July. I'm burning this, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know anything. So no equity. I can't resell.
You get discounts at the pro shop.
At the pro shop
on special shareholder apparel.
Team playing? No team playing.
No tickets.
No tickets. No. Nothing. All right. Well, you know what? We're done. What we're going to do is to thank Mark Murphy for this perspective.